What's going on YouTube? It's Phil here, back with another video. So I've been trying to make theme-based videos for the last few weeks, and the theme or topic of today is the addiction is not the problem. And this might seem a bit strange because if you're here, you're probably here because you found your way through NoFap or semen retention, and you've probably been struggling with some form of addiction. If you don't like the word addiction, compulsion, habit, whatever you want to call it, let's call it an addiction, bro. Call it what it is. Step one, admit you have a problem. You got a problem, it's controlling you. You are not controlling it, bro. You are not in control. Just admit it. As soon as you admit it, we can move on. We can get down to the business of fixing this shit. If you don't admit you got a problem, well, then we're stuck in denial and you never really you're never going to address this thing. That aside, once you've realized that, once you've got your head around the fact that there is a problem here that needs to be addressed, that's a big step on the path to healing. But it is a little bit funny how my perspective on this has changed through recovery, through my journey, because I've got a bit more life experience than some of you younger dudes out there. So, admit you got a problem, call it addiction. But the addiction is not actually the problem. What the hell is he talking about? Okay, so if you've had any experience with this, you've probably tried to stop PMO, tried to stop messing with corn, tried to stop messing around with S3X with people you don't want to be having it with these casual encounters, and you really wish that you could just live a more stable sort of a life that's not constantly being buffeted around in the wind, controlled by these forces outside of you. Essentially being a slave to your lust. That's kind of why a lot of you are here. You want to stop being a slave to your lust. But what happens when you try and stop? So you stop PMO. You probably tried it before. Pretty soon you have a relapse. But if you stop for any period of time, just through sheer will, and you're willing yourself to do it, your willpower is being tested. It's quite draining to do that, but you try and stop. What usually happens is it's like playing whack-a-mole. So you've whacked this PMO on the head, but those cravings are going to come out in other ways, and it might be junk food, it might be video games, it might be social media, scrolling on social media, all these other unhealthy ways. You might start drinking, sugar. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's always something that artificially releases dopamine. Okay? So fundamentally, nothing's changed. You might have dampen down one facet of the issue. You might temporarily have the S3X corn stuff under control. You're white knuckling it through sheer will, you're pushing it down. But it's just going to pop its head up over here and through some other means. And it can be quite insidious and sneak its way in through the back door. So what's going on here? So is it the corn that's the problem? Is it the S3X? Is it the lust that's the problem? Or is something else going on here? Because my experience has been every time I tried to stop when I was younger, the addiction found its way in through another means, through the back door. And if I was eating clean, I was acting out on S3X. But then if I was not acting out on S3X, and behaving myself in that aspect of my life, then my diet would usually go, or I'd stop going to the gym. I could never get it all. It'd always pop up one way or another. So I want to suggest that the addiction's not the problem. The addiction is a solution to a deeper underlying problem. So what are you talking about? So my experience has been on this journey that all these attempts to chase pleasure, to chase dopamine, whether it be through S3X, whether it be through, drugs, rock and roll, scrolling, social media, validation, food, sugar, processed garbage, junk foods, all these bad habits. It's all about chasing pleasure because you're trying to escape the emptiness inside. All of this is an attempt to fill a fundamental internal emptiness in your soul, inside of yourself, with something that's external. And believe me, because I've tried lots of ways of doing it, and I've always come back to the same thing. It's like I've tried traveling, tried running away from my problems. My problems were right there when I got there. It's like that saying, wherever you go, there you are. Your problems at home, you're going to travel. Those problems are going to be waiting for you as soon as you get off the plane at the airport. All those, those feelings of self-loathing, shame, doubt, regret, they're all going to be there for you to deal with. Just because you change time zones, just because you change location, doesn't mean anything. You've got to address this issue at the root, at its cause. And it's, in my experience, it's a spiritual issue. And what do I mean by that? There's something missing, and you feel it. You feel empty in your soul, inside of you, in your chest. And you know it, bro. You know it. There's always been something missing for a long time. Maybe as long as you can remember. You've been trying to fill this hole, and everything that you've tried has been unable to fill it. And that's because you've been trying to fill it with external things. You've been trying to fill an internal spiritual hole with material external solutions. And corn and SRX is just one example of that. But if it wasn't that, it would be something else. People get addicted to all kinds of things, not just SRX and corn, but fundamentally at the root of all these addictions, whether it's gambling, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, women, whatever, people are just chasing external pleasure in the material world. So before we get into the solution to all of this, let's just talk about the dynamics of these hormones, particularly dopamine. So dopamine is meant to be, it's a naturally occurring hormone in your body. It's got a purpose. Dopamine's not bad, but dopamine is meant to be the natural reward system for your body for doing activities and behaviors that are meant to benefit you. So if you do exercise, dopamine will be released. You need exercise. It's a healthy pursuit, unless it's being abused to the extreme. Food releases dopamine. Once again, unless it's being abused to the extreme. And also in modern day society, you've got food has kind of been processed and hijacked. So it's high in sugar, it's high in salt and all these other things and these chemicals that trick your body into releasing dopamine when the food has little nutritional value and is actually bad for you. But food is actually, it's a reward that your body is meant to naturally seek. And I'm talking about good, wholesome, natural, nutritionally dense food, not processed garbage. That's a healthy way to get dopamine. And typically you are meant to go out and catch the food, like you go on a hunt, you catch the food, you prepare the food, you eat it. So this was the body's way of getting you to do something difficult and give you a reward at the end. That's the way dopamine is meant to work. You do something difficult and you get the body's natural reward saying, well done you did the difficult task, here is a reward, here is a feel good for doing the reward. Because at the end of the day, if these things that were integral to our survival made us feel bad, we'd be a lot less likely to chase them and do them. Because chasing saber-toothed tigers is hard. Exercise is hard. Here's the other part to that equation though. If you artificially manipulate dopamine, there is a crash, particularly if you're spiking dopamine beyond the body's natural reward system usual levels. And that's when you talk about things like drugs, particularly like cocaine and crack and meth. These ones will super elevate dopamine to way beyond natural levels, and the body isn't used to that. The body isn't designed to handle that. And corn is actually, if you look at the brain scans of people on corn, it's exactly the same areas of the brain that light up as with all these other drug addictions. So it's essentially it's a drug, okay? And with drugs, if you abuse drugs, there's always a crash. Whenever you abuse your dopamine pathways, there is a crash. And you might only be abusing them a little bit. So the toll you're paying might only just be this general anxiety, this constant feeling of anxiety, because you keep daily taking the hits of this corn, this PMO. You don't think there's any harm, but day by day, you're just getting more anxious. You can't interact socially. You have trouble making eye contact. All of these things. Now, the more you abuse it, the worse these issues are going to get. So it can eventually descend from a low-level anxiety into full-fledged depression, and even pure insanity. I've been through S3X addiction recovery. I've seen people lose everything, go crazy over this stuff. And it does happen. But for the majority of dudes, they're just sort of struggling with low-level anxiety to sort of, they lose all motivation, they lose their drive. And it's really, you're living your life with, it's like driving a car with the brakes on. The emergency brake's still on. You're not getting anywhere. You're like struggling and struggling and struggling, but the brake's still on. You just feel like everything's so hard because you've got this monkey on your back and you can't get past it. This is the whole dopamine trap, right? So I wanted to talk about this. So whenever you artificially cheat and boost dopamine beyond its natural levels, or get it from a source where you're not naturally meant to get it, you're trying to cheat, there's always a toll to pay, okay? And that pleasure, whatever that temporary artificial pleasure was that you got from the dopamine, is going to be met by an equal amount of suffering. The more you abuse the dopamine, the more you cheat, the more the suffering. This is like a inevitable, unescapable law of the universe. Everything tries to come into balance. So you tried to get the reward without going through and paying the cost. And now you're going to suffer. Now you're going to pay the cost. There's no escaping it. You're going to pay one way or another. You're going to go through the suffering. That's the way the universe works. So you need to understand that about dopamine, okay? If you abuse dopamine, you're going to suffer. So what is the way out of this? Because there's all these ways to abuse dopamine. There's temptation is everywhere in this world. So what are you going to do? My experience has been you cannot try and fill an empty internal spiritual void, that hole in your soul, with external means. So if you're chasing pleasure in the external, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's never going to work. So what do you have to do? You have to find a spiritual solution to the spiritual problem. The problem is not the addiction. The problem is not the corn. The problem is not the S3X. The problem is not the lust. The problem is you feel empty inside, bro. You know it. You sit there alone at night. You go home. You feel shitty. You feel miserable. You feel empty. There's nothing inside you that is encouraging you to get up in the morning every day with a spring in your step and say, let's go. Let's attack life. I'm on my purpose. I've got a reason to be doing this. I've got a reason to get up out of bed in the morning. You're empty inside, bro. Admit it. You are. I was, and I still struggle. I'm not a sole problem by any means, but I've had a bit more experience on this journey than some of you, and this is what I've arrived at. Because, dudes, let me tell you, I've had money. I used to work in IT. I used to get paid good money. I'm talking about double six figures. I've had, six figures in my bank account, literally. I was happy for about 2 weeks, and I've tried to travel. I've tried S3X. I've tried female validation. I've tried drugs. I've tried copious amounts of alcohol. I've tried money. I've tried material possessions. I've tried everything, and none of it did anything to fill the hole in my soul. And it wasn't until I started working on that things really started to change. So what do you have to do? You have to reconnect with your spirituality. You have to reconnect with your soul. You need to find out who you are. And I'm not talking about the flesh. I'm not talking about your body. I'm not talking about your mind. I'm not talking about, your car, your job, Fight Club, you're not your car keys. I'm not talking about your clothes, what you wear, how you dress, any of that material external stuff. I'm talking about who you are. And one of the ways to get into this is to meditate, right? So this is so you can experience this at at a micro level, and you get a glimpse of what I'm talking about. So when you meditate, you just lie there. You notice all the sensations in your body. You go, okay, these are my feelings. I'm feeling them. I can observe my feelings. So who or what is doing the observing? First question, who or what's doing that? Okay, so you're able to feel your feelings and kind of step back and observe those. Okay. So if you can do that, you're not your feelings because you're separate from them. You can observe them, so they're not you. Same with your thoughts. You'll be sitting there, lying there, and if you just sort of sit there and observe the thoughts, observe your mind playing these thoughts on your mind like a movie screen or words popping into your head, these thoughts bubbling up, but you can sit back and observe them. Just breathe and observe them. And after a while, you just notice all these thoughts coming up. And the more you do it, the more you'll notice that you can separate yourself from these thoughts. So then the question becomes, who or what is having the thoughts? So you are not your body, you are not your feelings, you are not your mind, you are not your thoughts. Who are you? That's you. You're the observer. There's something that is not your body, that is not the material, that is not the mind, that is not your thoughts, that is you. And that is the you need to get in touch with. That is the spiritual you. You need to spend a lot more time paying attention to the real you, not the external material you, not your mind, not your body, but your spirit. That's your spirit. That's what you're getting in touch with. And the more you get in touch with that, and the more you move away from the external, the more you're going to realize that you have a purpose in this life and your soul is crying out to be on that purpose. And that's the direction it wants to go. And you've probably gone your whole life and you've never even listened to your spirit. The spirit is telling you something. And if you stop, you listen to your thoughts, you listen to your body, and you just let all that go. And underneath all that, once all that's run its course, your soul is going to be there. And that is the real you. Get in touch with that. Get in touch with what it wants. Find your soul's purpose, and that is what's going to give you that sense of fulfillment. That's the only thing. Everybody was put here for a reason, dudes. Everybody has a purpose. It's different for every man. You just need to figure out what that is. And that one of the ways, not the only way, but one of the best ways I've found is through meditation. But you've got to get off the externals. You've got to quiet the mental chatter. You've got to get off the feelings, all the lust, all the hormones, all the external forces in society telling you this is what you have to do. Chase money, fame, women, all that. It's just going to leave you empty, bro. Quieten your mind. Go in a quiet room. Just lie there. Get in touch with your spirit. And see what your spirit really is being called to do. That's the way out of this. It's a spiritual solution to a spiritual problem. You cannot solve an internal spiritual emptiness trying to fill it with external whatever. It's not going to work, bros. Believe me, I've tried. So that's all I'm going to say in this video. That's the message. Don't want to make this too long. So I'm going to leave it there for today. That being said, if you're watching, super grateful that you're watching. Thanks for tuning in. Drop a comment below. Smash the like button. If you're on the SR journey or thinking about being on the SR journey, doesn't matter if you're 1 day, 10 days, 100 days, 1,000 days. We're all in this together. Drop a comment below and I'll see you on the next video.